Pay close attention to these images. Two friends are at a bar. They are Maiane Ferreira, 20 years old, and Tâmara Trindade, 28 years old. With them are two men, Jonas known as Cowboy and his brother Maicon known as Indian. The security images record everything. The man in the black shirt is trying to seduce Maiane. He approaches, tries to kiss her several times but without success. The young woman clearly shows discomfort with the situation and tries to move away. The advances become more aggressive, reaching the point where the man pulls her hair and tries to grab her by force. Maiane resists again. According to the investigation, this was one of the triggers for what was to come. At a certain moment, Maiane gets irritated and even shouts at the guy, who keeps insisting and trying to kiss the girl. Beside them, his brother, the man in the white shirt, tries to seduce the friend, Tâmara Trindade. Until then, at that moment, despite the visible discomfort of the girls, nothing in those images indicated anything out of the ordinary. However, those were the last images of the girls alive. According to initial reports, Jonas had a relationship with Tâmara. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary that night. They talked, drank and laughed like any group of friends. For those watching from the outside, it was just another casual meeting. But there, in that simple moment, the beginning of a tragedy was already being written. After leaving the place, Maiane and Tâmara were not seen again. The hours passed. The families started calling. Neither of them answered the phone. Messages were not replied to. The silence began to worry. Still that night, relatives started the first searches on their own. Friends were contacted. Places the two usually went were visited. No one knew where they had gone after the meeting with Jonas. The disappearance soon took over the city. The next day, the anguish increased. Improvised posters began circulating on social networks. Photos of the two young women, accompanied by requests for help, spread quickly. The civil police officially took over the case. The first information pointed to Jonas, the cowboy, as the last person seen with the young women. He was located and taken in to give a statement. At first, he tried to appear confused. He said he had met with them, that they had drunk together, but that afterward each one had gone their own way. He could not explain where. But the version began to show flaws. Investigators noticed contradictions in the times, in the statements and in the behavior. Jonas seemed nervous. At some moments he got tangled answering simple questions. At others, he showed knowing more than he said. The pressure increased. Confronted with information that was already being raised by the police, Jonas ended up giving in. During the early morning, he confessed. He said he took the two young women to a region known as Fazenda Nova, in Simões Filho, Brazil, a more remote place, with wooded areas, little movement and difficult access. According to his account, on the way and already at the place, a discussion occurred. The reason, a debt. According to Jonas, Tâmara owed about 15,000 reais to him. A high amount for the reality of the young women. The money, according to the investigation, had been loaned previously and never returned. The charge turned into a fight. The argument intensified. And it was there that everything got out of control. Jonas said he began to assault Tâmara. First with punches. Then he allegedly used a bladed weapon, a knife or a machete, according to later versions. The violence was brutal. Maiane witnessed everything. Desperate, she began to scream, ask for help, try to stop it. She had no involvement with the debt. She was there only as a friend. But to the attackers, she became a witness. And witnesses, in that plan, could not remain alive. Jonas then attacked Maiane as well. With both young women already dead, the suspect stated that he hid the bodies in a stream in the region, trying to make location difficult. Based on this confession, teams from the civil police, the fire department and forensics were taken to the indicated point. Hours of searches through the vegetation. Until the bodies were found. Maiane Ferreira and Tâmara Trindade were there, confirming the family's worst fear. The atmosphere in Simões Filho completely changed. Relatives who still held hope had to be supported by medical teams when identifying the victims. The emotion took over the city. But the investigation was only beginning. Because, as the details emerged, the police began to believe that Jonas did not act alone. There were clear indications of participation of a second man, identified as Maicon, also known as Indian, Jonas's brother. Testimonies, movements and the very dynamics of the crime pointed to a joint action. From that moment on, the case stopped being treated as an isolated crime of impulse. Everything indicated that there were more people involved, and that the murder of the two young women had been more planned than initially imagined. With the confirmation of the deaths of Maiane Ferreira and Tâmara Trindade, the police began to reconstruct every step of the final hours of the two young women. The initial confession of Jonas, the cowboy, had pointed out the location of the bodies and the reason for the argument, but investigators knew that something was still not fully explained. The crime seemed too complex to have been committed by just one person. While Jonas was kept in custody, new operations began to be carried out in the Fazenda Nova region. Residents were interviewed. Suspicious movements from previous days began to be analyzed. Information started to cross. Maicon, known in the region as Indian. He was Jonas's brother and had already been seen with him on several occasions. Witnesses reported that, on the night of the disappearance, the two were together before the meeting with the young women. Other residents said they had seen strange movement at one of their houses, hours later. The police began to believe that Maicon not only knew about the crime, but actively participated. Pressured by the evidence, Jonas ended up saying more. In a new statement, he revealed that his brother was present during the entire situation. According to him, Maicon had helped restrain the young women during the moment of the assault and participated in hiding the bodies. The narrative that before seemed like a crime committed in the heat of an argument began to take on the shape of an execution. According to investigators, the young women had been purposely lured to the remote location. It was not a random route. Jonas knew the region well. He knew that there hardly anyone would hear screams or appear by chance. The house used before dumping the bodies also caught the attention of the police. It was a simple property, in a low-movement area, belonging to one of the suspects. According to findings, it was there that the most violent assaults happened. Tools found at the location indicated the use of objects such as a machete and an axe, reinforcing the level of brutality used in the crime. The investigation pointed that Tâmara was the first target. The argument about the money may have been the trigger, but what came after showed extreme loss of control. Repeated blows were struck against her. Maiane, witnessing everything, panicked. It was at that moment that the two men decided that she would also have to die. The police made it clear, Maiane had no involvement with the debt whatsoever. Her only mistake was being in the wrong place, at the wrong time. After the murder of both, the suspects used a wheelbarrow to transport the bodies to the stream where they were thrown, in an attempt to mislead authorities. This detail caused outrage among the city's residents. The coldness with which everything was done shocked even the most experienced investigators. Meanwhile, Maicon disappeared. Knowing about his brother's arrest and the progress of the investigation, he came to be considered a fugitive. A preventive arrest warrant was issued against him. The police intensified the searches. Roadblocks were set up. Addresses linked to the suspect were monitored. Family members and acquaintances began to be called in for questioning. With each new report, it became clearer that the two brothers had acted together. But the net was closing in. Days later, Maicon realized he would not be able to keep hiding. Knowing about the open arrest order and already seeing himself surrounded, he decided to turn himself in voluntarily to the police. Upon arriving at the station, he was immediately arrested. With the two main suspects now in custody, the case moved forward quickly. Maicon confirmed part of his brother's version. He admitted he was present at the location. He said he tried to break up the fight at first, but that everything got out of control. However, the evidence and statements contradicted this attempt to minimize his participation. For investigators, there was no doubt he played an active role in the crime. With the testimonies, the dynamics became even clearer. The young women were lured under the pretext of drinking and talking. The debt collection was not spontaneous. Everything indicates that Jonas already intended to confront Tâmara that night. The isolated location was chosen precisely for that. What began as a collection ended in murder. And the second murder happened to eliminate any witness. The city of Similsfilio followed everything in shock. Two names that days earlier appeared on missing posters were now headlines of a brutal double homicide. Maiane, a young mother, full of plans. Tâmara, a loyal friend, who trusted the wrong person. While the suspects awaited the next steps of justice, the families of the victims tried to deal with an immeasurable pain. Funerals marked by crying, anger, and unanswered questions. How can someone kill for money? How does an argument turn into an execution? And how are 2 lives erased in such a cruel way? Cases like Maiane's and Tâmara's show how ordinary meetings can hide dangers that no one imagines. Real stories, full of twists, that begin as routine and end in tragedy. If you want to keep following real investigations, crimes that shock Brazil, and deep narratives that reveal what happens behind the headlines, subscribe to the channel now. Every week, new cases reconstructed in detail, with context, investigation, and everything you need to understand beyond quick news. Turn on the bell so you don't miss any story. And we will see you in the next case.